everyone's time and getting in here so nice and early. Thank you so much. I want to welcome everybody to our MasterClass by Master Coaches. I'm so excited that we're getting to do this program for everybody in South Florida and the South Florida chapter. And thank you to all of you for joining today, and those of you from different parts of the country joining our chapter or just joining us today. Thank you so much. If you're not a member, you really should be, because you're going to get all the rest of these courses for the rest of the year for free. So unless you want to pay 25 bucks a piece, that's fine. I'll take it. But you should really be a member, because there's a lot of other great things going on with our chapter. With that being said, I want to introduce to you a very, very special guest all the way from just outside of Athens, Greece, Katarina Kanelidou. She is a master certified coach with ICF. She is the director of 6 Steps Ahead. She's also co-founder of Team Coaching Global Alliance and of Coach Activism, and faculty member at the ICA. She is based in Greece, and she works with leaders and their teams from around the world, supporting them to create healthy and high-value workplaces and positive, sustainable change, even in the most adverse environment. Katarina was one of the subject matter experts that contributed to the development of the ICF team coaching competencies. So that right there tells you, like, you're really getting the real deal today. It's not someone's interpretation. This is where it all comes from. She's currently serving as the co-leader of the ICF's team and group coaching community of practice, and is often a guest speaker at international conferences on coaching and leadership. Graduate of the University of Athens, the University of Barcelona, and the International Coach Academy. She holds a master's in drama therapy. I do not know what that is, but I'd be super excited to see if we can find out a little bit more about what drama therapy is. With that being said, Katarina, I give you the floor.
Well, thank you very much for the super warm welcome. And thank you all for being here today. I appreciate that. I know for some it's the lunch break. For others, you are commuting. So I appreciate the effort of being here with us. Let me start let me share my screen and share with you my slides. So I've been told that there are these black sides that you can see in the screen. If you want to put them in full screen, maybe it will be better. So we are going to explore today the topic of building resilient teams. And we are going also to touch on the subject of the connection between resilience and conflict. Hopefully, I have a very ambitious content and activities for us. Hopefully, we will be able to cover most of it. Now, before we dive in, let's do a quick check-in. And for those of you who are familiar with Susan David's work on emotional agility, you might have seen these umbrellas before. So let's check in, and please put in the chat box, what is under your umbrella right now? What is under your umbrella right now? So be as specific as possible. If you don't find the exact words here that describe what is under your umbrella, feel free to add them. So what's under your umbrella right now? So nice. And let's see how each one of us is. Beautifully. What sadness. Okay. Yes. Trust, comfort, thankful. And it's okay for us to hold one or two. Sorry, and it's okay for us to hold even, very different emotions at the same time. Hey, I can tell you that living in Greece, it's the most usual thing to live in polarities. Now, what is it that we are going to explore today? As the challenges of the world continue, and it's never a boring day in this world, Teams are expected to continue performing under new context, new structures, processes, sometimes even purpose. The resilience of the team is tested. Urgency, new conditions, uncertain situations, all that can increase the stress they're experiencing and even impact the ability of the team members to address conflict. In this session, we are going to identify how resilient teams look like, what makes them resilient, what's the role of us as team coaches, and the connection between resilience and conflict. Having enough time at the end, we are going to share tips and best practices, and we are going to address questions basically at the end, but I'm pretty sure we will have them throughout the session. Now, I will invite you again to put in the chat box what excites you about today's session. What excites you about today's session? Definitely not my accent. Okay. Erika, you have my accent. You will be sorry about that, especially if I forget it and start talking quickly. Okay, learning something new, relevant to the needs of the world now. It's a field with less competition, blue ocean, team coaching, the topic. So what excites you specifically about our session today? We love working with teams, and here's to learning something new, the new learnings, increase coaching impact with more people, team coaching, learning from me. Okay, shared experiences, fantastic. And if it's something specific that it is about the learning and not general, please feel free to add it. It's mostly about, the opportunity of the learning, and Vienna adds the development also. Thank you very much. Next question is, what concerns do you have about today's session? What are your concerns about today's session? My accent again. None, says Patricia. Limited time, yes. Limited time also, Sven, is one of my concerns too. And I won't directly translate it to immediate application. Yeah, that's fair. Lara, being fully here. Okay, Val. None, not fully present. Okay. And understanding of distinction between this and group facilitation. Oh my God, yeah, that's an entire different webinar about that, Kim. And actually, maybe afterwards I will share a link with Jimmy that he can send out to all of you with the session, specifically about the difference between team and group coaching. Learning foundation of team coaching. Yes, okay, thank you very much. Oh, sorry. Okay, well, thank you all very much. Now, time to make some agreements. Some of you had the concern of how to be fully present. So what is it that we need from ourselves and also from the others in this webinar to be fully present and to make this a safe learning space? The agreements that we are going to share and, agree on, of course, these rules, this applies also to anyone who is going to watch the recording. So not only in our presence today, but also for everyone who will watch the recording. And I will start by sharing the confidentiality. We're going to share examples, stories, cases, so there is going to be confidentiality. Again, what do you need from yourself and from others to have this safe and positive learning space and be present? And please put in the chat box. I cannot hear confidentiality. Trust. Feelings, exactly, engaged and trusting the process. Okay. be open mind, sensitive to everyone who wants to have time to share and ask questions. Okay. Yeah. So make space for everyone. Openness, curiosity. Yes. Encouragement given and received. Openness and trust. Be mindful of each other's experience and accept and acknowledge each other's experience. Give trust, protecting vulnerability of others, and being willing to be vulnerable. Let me add. And I saw curiosity, so I will invite us to replace, to use curiosity to replace judgment. So let's release and delete judgment. What else? Make a conscious decision, commitment to be here. Thank you, Viviana. And let me add to that to turn off any notifications, maybe close other windows or devices, whatever is going to allow you to be more present without distractions. Yes, be willing to participate and share. Yes. So the openness is not only to what we are hearing, but also to what we are sharing, and be comfortable with not knowing. And allow mistakes, you know, be comfortable with everything. Oh, I am the first one who always make a mistake, at least one mistake in every presentation. I haven't done one yet, but I'm definitely going to make one. Be willing to be more present and curious. Let me add to have fun. So let's add humor. And because of our diversity, to appreciate our diversity, and also if, I have the tendency to make jokes or, try to be funny, but if something is not appropriate in another culture, please let me know. Okay. So it seems that we have covered, everything that we need so that we are not only fully present here, but also we feel comfortable and we are creating a safe space for us. Oh, let me add one more. Take care of yourself. We had the example, of having a lunch. Do whatever you need to take also care of yourself. Have your coffee, your tea, your evening drink, depending on the time, your snacks, anything. And feel free to be with this with the camera on. Okay, let's move on. And this is an excerpt from an article of Giampiero Petriglieri that he wrote at the end of December 2020. It was the title of Make Space for Grief After a Year of Loss. I would like to share with you a very personal story. For almost 10 years before 2020, my mother was going in and out of hospitals. Sometimes we didn't know if she was going to make it. We will receive phone calls in the middle of the night, and we were ready to jump into the car and head to the hospital. She would be transferred every time and be there for days or for weeks. We would spend there holidays. I did, almost half of my time when I was serving as the president of the Greek ICF chapter there. And while in the corridors of these hospitals, I learned to keep working. I would reply to my emails, I would write articles, manage projects, work with the teams, and so on. I would breathe and carry on. I had taught myself to stay calm and focused under pressure. That's something I had learned from a young age, and it had been valuable even in my extreme sports activities, and of course, when facing a crisis. Until the beginning of 2020, once again at the hospital for my mother 4 weeks again. But this time, she did not make it. And I had to fight again my ability to adapt to the loss of my mother and carry on. These past 2 years have been years of losses. People lost loved ones, jobs, balance, work hours, social connections, physical proximity, and more. What about you? What have you lost in these years? And please share that in the chat box. What have you lost in these years? And you know, you remember we are releasing our judgment here. Don't judge if it's something worth sharing, if it's a big loss or a small loss. It doesn't really matter. Social life, yes. Yeah, and question from Kim. Yeah. Kim, if we have time at the end, we can discuss about that, because I believe it connects with the teams. Maybe indirectly, we address that. Lost connections, the parents also, the ability to travel, sense of national unity, the old life, yes, because we moved to another, you moved also to another state. So it was almost, life as we know it from every sense. The ambiguous loss of Alzheimer's, yes. The North Star, feeling grounded and confident. Yes, the sense of, of that sense. The ability to fly for vacations, loss of family, workouts. Thank you very much all for sharing with us. And sometimes the losses are so many and so big that we forget also the small losses, like the loss of a hobby that also helped us cope with other challenges, so brought balance to our lives. Many, away, missing in-person contacts with others, to close cousins. Yes. Well, I appreciate the openness and the sharing here with us. Live music, yes, hugs. Oh, yes. And food together and laughing. Yes, live music, definitely. Now, my next question to you is, what about your team or your teams? If you are a member of a team, or if you are working with a team, as a coach or under another capacity, doesn't matter. What about your teams? What have they lost these last 2 years? And again, let's put that in the chat box. The structure, momentum. Or they had, the familiar structure, they need to create a new structure, right? Confidence that they belong, yes. The ability to meet in person. The security. Face-to-face meetings, spontaneity. Easy access to welcoming body cues. Oh, yeah. Any body cue from here to here. The lost sense of connection quite a lot. Yeah. Sharing experiences, learning from seeing others, loss of focus and vision, ability to connect, decision making together. Yeah, because the way they are working, the empathy. Oh, right. This is interesting. The coffee time breaks, or the coffee, that time that you will talk about everything. Now you have to meet with your team online, and you have to do specific, you're working very focused. The rest of the connection is lost, right? Just tasks, what needs to be done. Working independently. My co-worker, 15-year-old, has lost his independence. They're very dependent on us now. That's his mojo. We work on physical energy. This is a visible support space. When someone is overwhelmed, the managers can see. Yes, absolutely. So many things. And, because teams are also made up by people, we can add to that the loss of all the members of the team. So it's what they have lost collectively as a team and what each team member has lost. This is one of the graphics that I like. Liz and Molly are doing a fantastic work to give, a representation of what many of us experiencing. And one of the losses about our work-life boundaries. So how do we move on, right? How do we keep our teams resilient, productive, focused, optimistic, and connected? Before we address this question on how we do that, let's refresh our memory or understanding or agree of how we perceive resilience. Psychologists define resilience as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress, such as problems, family, relationship, professional problems, serious health problems, or workplace and financial stressors. As much as resilience involves bouncing back from these difficult experiences, it can also involve profound personal growth. Fundamentally, resilience is understood as referring to positive adaptation, or the ability to remain or regain mental health despite experiencing adversity. While these adverse events, much like rough river waters, are certainly painful and difficult, they don't have to determine the outcome. There are many aspects that we can control, modify, and grow with, and that's the role of resilience. Becoming more resilient not only helps us get through difficult circumstances, it also empowers to grow and even improve our life along the way. Now, being resilient doesn't mean that the person or a team, in our case, won't experience difficulty or distress. People who have suffered major adversity or trauma in their lives commonly experience emotional pain and stress. In fact, the road to resilience is likely to involve considerable emotional distress. And while certain factors might make some individuals or teams more resilient than others, resilience isn't necessarily a personality trait that only some people or teams possess. On the contrary, it involves behaviors, thoughts, and actions that anyone can learn and develop. The ability to learn resilience is one reason research has shown that resilience is actually ordinary, not extraordinary. It's like building a muscle. Increasing resilience could take time, but it requires intentionality. Focusing on some key capabilities that we are going to see can empower the team to withstand and learn from difficult experiences. Now, let's start by seeing some of the characteristics of resilient teams. The first one is that resilient teams are persistent under difficult circumstances. Well, difficult circumstances are inevitable. And in this crazy world, it seems that they are just increasing. They can arise through an unplanned change, tight deadlines, poor planning, underperformance, or stakeholders inside, outside the team, when we are talking about the business environment. How a team responds to these circumstances is the measure of their resilience. Do they push through and maintain a positive frame of mind? Or do they become dysfunctional and dial down their performance? The second one is that they remain optimistic with a forward-looking perspective. While optimism is a personality trait, a team can learn it with a bit of focus and genuine willingness. Now, optimism shows in the in the words and body language that we use. So it's not just the words, but it's also our body language. A team with an optimistic outlook will focus on the outcomes they are after when a problem arises. They are not going to dwell on the problem. It is a better approach than to dwell on the causes of the problem. If the team isn't inherently optimistic, it's up to the team leader and the team coach to help them and set the tone. Next one, they positively adapt to changing situations and respond to setbacks effectively. We could even skip the word positively. It's just about adaptations and response to the circumstances. We covered systems earlier, but we need more than that. We actually need to be effective. For example, a team might be working on a project that has a critical path. What happens if an external factor interrupts that critical path or delays the process? How could the team adapt? Sometimes the critical path has detours. Is the team ready to take a detour when needed? Another one has to do with a high level of self-awareness among team members. Okay, as coaches, we know that self-awareness is a critical quality to foster on an individual level. To foster it as a team is incredibly powerful. Noticing when you are under stress, for example, gives you an opportunity to respond rather to react. The response might be to take time out, go for a walk, meditate, or discuss the issue with someone else. In our case, someone else on the team or inside the team. It's when we are under stress that it is harder to maintain our self-awareness. Now, we know that. But if the team has an agreement in place to look out for each other, then self-awareness has a new dimension. As a team coach, it is imperative that you let team members know that it's okay to be human. And they don't have to put a brave face on all the time. With an attitude of caring, team members can check in with each other without feeling that they have to be defensive or show up weak or pretend they're okay when they are not. This doesn't always mean that you always have to find a solution to what's going on. Sometimes we just need to notice that we are under stress, that the team or the members, some team members are under stress, and that's enough to trigger a mental reset. It's when, of course, again, as coaches, we know that problems go unacknowledged, that they get out of hand. Next one. Self-regulate temperament and are supporting and encouraging. Another characteristic. This follows on from the self-awareness element, but it's more concerned with the response to solutions that we mentioned before than the awareness of them. When possible, try to find a common language where team members can communicate without judgment. For example, the team may have an agreement in place that they rank their perception of stress level or engagement on a scale, for example, of 1 to 10. This is a way of holding people to account without making them feel bad or being wrong. If the team is familiar with other, or the coach, with other tools or techniques, you could use these as a reference to observations of their behavior. I learned that about the lifestyles inventory, and it is a reference to color. So, for example, if what is observed is defensive or oppositional behavior, we can name that as, I'm observing a lot of red. Let's shift that to blue. But again, we need first to have the self-awareness and the acknowledgement. Or you could have agreed words that indicate it's time for those involved to check in to see if they are in a reactive or responsive mode. And if we have time, we might share also tools for that. They also take active steps to work on their well-being. How are you fostering the well-being in your team? These are obvious steps. There are obvious steps to this. It can include encouraging team members to eat well, take care of their body, right? Take the lunch break or take regular breaks away from the desk. But we encourage team leaders to step this up and factor in emotional well-being as well, not just the physical well-being. In some cases, team leaders or teams were handed, team leaders gave to their teams these apps, pedometers, so that they have it as a group challenge and see how many steps they can cover. And again, the well-being doesn't include only the physical well-being, but also the emotional, mental well-being. And we can think about activities or what else do we need to check and actually take steps for that. Who has shared values and purpose? Values are something that the team holds as important, and the purpose is clarity. And the purpose is clarity about what they do, with whom, and why. When teams are clear about their values, then it becomes natural to align their efforts, decision-making, and to be effective. And while values can be very personal and vary greatly, agreeing on the common values can be powerful in aligning the team. In some cases, the organization may have already articulated the values of the business, a company, or a mission as a whole. The team may or may not adopt these, or they may choose to create their own mission and set of internal values. What matters most is that they are common and agree to all of the team members. These values and the agreed purpose can be the basis for performance conversations, a reference for team meetings, and will form the core of the team culture. When Jim in his presentation mentioned the project Coach Activism, it's a project that started in 2016. It's entirely pro bono. We have a very big number, and every time is increasing, of coaches, trainers, supervisors that work all pro bono to support the frontline volunteers of the refugee crisis. And the steering committee that is working super hard. What we were doing at the beginning every time, we will reflect on the values. We will check on them. Are we still okay with the values we have? And what practically do they mean, these values, in terms of commitments and behaviors? And every time we had to make difficult decisions, we will check, we will get back to them as a point of reference. And it was clear also to all of us why we were here. What was it that we were serving? And this why had to do both with individual, because that's the motivation, but also the commitment to the shared purpose that we will all agree and we were backing up with our hard work. Now, you have a list of characteristics of resilient teams. What other characteristics would you add to this list? So let's hear from you. What other characteristics would you add to this list? And let me stop sharing for a moment so that I can see the faces. So what other characteristics would you add to this list? Or would you like me to bring back the slide with the list? Oh, yes, Kim. Courageous, honest, with compassion. Yes. We notice this compassion in the way they communicate with each other, in the way they challenge each other, in the way they give feedback. And the honesty and yes, and courageous also. What else have you noticed? They are empathetic, absolutely. Yes. Realistic in assessing status. Patricia, tell us more about that.
I find that sometimes teams, and especially during the pandemic, there was like an imposition to be optimistic. And in my experience, I was working as a manager for a large corporation, and there was no space sometimes to openly discuss the difficulties that people were going through. So I think that it's very important to create a space where you can honestly assess the difficulties and not just all like rah, 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 you know, we're all optimistic and everything, because that backfires.
Absolutely. And that's something very important that Patricia is saying. It's about accepting. It's not, you know, it's not this naivety. Yes, yeah, right. We can do it. That energy. This is not about resilience, and it is about being realistic of what's going on, what's the reality, what's the obstacles, whatever is happening, and move forward. Right.
You cannot solve a problem that you don't acknowledge that exists. That's
and denial can take you as far. Trust the process. There is a lot of trust, absolutely, the team and the leader, and there is a trust not only the process but with each other. Yes, and inherent the psychological safety. Oh yes, bingo here, and we are going to talk more about that. Being happy all the time is a strange verb, sometimes mistaken for resilience. Yes, the toxic positivity also. I think ensuring the emotional well-being now after during pandemic is important, focused on physical, but we're not openly supporting emotional well-being. Yes. Well, thank you very much for adding also your observations, and yes, being vulnerable. Yeah. Yes, being able to, you know, to say that overwhelm. And I will add also about boundaries, understand another boundaries. Okay, let's get back to our presentation. And here you have a very popular model about the 5 key capabilities. It's a resilience model by Roffey Park. And we're going to adjust that to the teams. So that's a very, very popular, actually very effective resilience capabilities model. And what happens if we take this model that applies for individuals and we apply it with teams, and what the team codes can do here? Okay, why I started with purpose, values, and strengths. This is the one that I have chosen to start with, because for me, without that, it doesn't really matter. For me, it's like what will put, it's like the thing that is going to make me go beyond, because I know what I am serving. And I already mentioned about the value of the values. So here we have some questions, and I customize for that. You don't need to take notes. You will keep it with the slide. I will share the slides afterwards. So some things that we can reflect and we can work on with a team. Personally, I don't do any work with my clients, no matter if they're individuals or teams. In any case, the team is an entity if we don't clarify the values and the purpose. And also the strengths. And I hope we have time, because I will share you also an exercise that I did with the strengths, not only to understand better each other, but also as a way to include everyone more effectively, but also address conflict. So the next one is the connections. One of the things that we have lost are the connections. Now, what do we need to get back to these connections? These connections are inside the team, but also outside the team. These are also the connections with the support network. in the example I gave about coach activism, there is an extensive network of support, not only the trainers, but also the supervisors. And this is not optional, this is mandatory. So how do you foster the connections with the team and how you help them be more aware of the importance of these connections for the resilience? The next one is do the work on the emotional intelligence. And here we can have several webinars just dedicated on the emotional intelligence. And again, some things to check with the team, but these are not enough. The next one is about the physical energy. And I don't know about you, but many people have changed the habits during the pandemic. The sleeping patterns changed, the eating pattern changed, everything changed. And everybody says that, you know, something that is helping you be resilient is to have a routine, to keep actually a routine. And also let go of activities that gave them joy or help them relax. So as a team coach, it's okay to include these when you're working with a team, while you're working with a team. And last one is perspective. Here is when we are reframing experiences. It's part of, you know, this is what we cannot change. What are the things that we can change? What is our perspective now if something comes up? I want us to pay attention here of how we use that. Reframe experiences to find opportunity in adversity. We want to be careful and apply our own emotional intelligence when we use that. I have heard people who have been trained as coaches when someone had a devastating event and they asked this naive question, right? And what's positive about it? Their intention was very good. They wanted them to change the perspective, right? To reframe their perspective. But if a tragic event, like for example, the loss of a loved one happens, you cannot ask that. And another thing that I want us to understand is, and I read somewhere a very good article about that, is that resilience also, if we notice that our team is struggling, there is the challenge of resilience, like in individuals, that's a sign of something. We don't want to have broken systems where people and teams become more and more strong to overcome these. No. We have to fix the systems that are broken. The purpose is not to accept the reality of, you know, the things that go wrong and just say, oh, you know, that phrase, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. No, actually, our role and our duty for me as coaches is to empower people so that they can have a bigger impact to have sustainable also systems. Now, time for some breakout rooms, and you're going to work on 2 simple questions. And we have also some things. Okay. Balance is such a key part of that, absolutely. Okay, so Jimmy, if you would like to put in the chat box the 2 questions that you are going to work on during the breakout rooms, you're going to discuss what resilience has to do with conflict, and what type of conflicts are more frequent in the team or teams that you coach. What is it that you have noticed, right? Based on your observations, what resilience has to do with conflict and what type of conflicts are more frequent in the team or team you coach. One of you is going to take notes and you're going to share your notes with us after we get back from the breakout rooms. So if you are going to have 15 minutes, we hope these are enough.
All right, I am going to set it up. There's going to be about 4 people in each room. Let me see if I can change the amount of time. You said 15, right, Katarina?
Yes.
Okay, let me see if it lets me do that. All right, options. 15 minutes. Okay. Allowed. Okay. All right. I think we're good there. All right. So I just want to make sure I've got the right amount of people in there. Okay. 1 room. Well, okay. So Katarina, if you get pushed into a room, pull yourself back out.
Okay.
It won't let me put you in a non-room. So you're going to jump out and I'm not going to join one either. So, all right. All right. I will, hold on. Let's see. Michael's bailing out on us. So let me make sure that room is okay. All right. I'm going to move 1 person to room 4. Okay. Now there's 4 in every room. Perfect. All right. We'll see you in 15 minutes, everybody. Everybody understands the instructions? Thumbs up? Awesome. Okay. See you in a little bit.
Thank you. Welcome. Welcome back, and we are looking forward to hear the results of your groups. So which one from the groups would like to go first?
And please go ahead and turn your camera on if you can, so that we can see all the beautiful smiling faces. There we go. Thank you, Amelia.
Okay, let's go with group 1. Who would like to share from group 1? Yes, Eric.
I forgot what group we were. Were we what?
Doesn't matter. Just go.
Well, hey, so with regard to question 1, the idea of, what does resilience have to do with conflict? We sort of came to the idea that conflict is one of the hardest things that teams have to deal with. Conflict is where things get really complicated, and resilience brings an attitude of constructive conflict resolution. So resilience puts us in a place to actually get to resolution. Was sort of what we were thinking for number 1. What does resilience have to do with conflict? And then what conflicts are most frequent? We had a huge list, everything from finger pointing to honesty to integrity to avoidance. But the biggest one was ego and identity issues. We felt that was a conflict that was most frequent in teams, ego and identity issues.
Thank you very much, Eric. Okay, and I think you were from the second group. So let's hear from the other groups. Who would like to go next?
Well, I don't know what I can add to what he said, but maybe a couple of additional thoughts that conflict is certainly a huge challenge, and it comes from, who wants to be right, and, some of the things that he's already mentioned, but also fear of being foolish or being wrong. But a resilient team will see conflict as being a healthy thing that you can actually embrace, rather than trying to avoid and disengaging from. And so a resilience leads to healthy conflict and greater productivity and better outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much, Scott. Lillian, you were in the 3rd group.
This is Kim Moore. I don't know what group we were in. We lost one who was our scribe. So will our other 2 members please chime in what I've forgotten? I'll just jump in and say, I think identified that the meaning, what the team members ascribe to the meaning of conflict is important. Abdias, are you back and want to share instead of me? Okay.
Oh, thanks, Kim.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I lost my connection there at the very end, which was probably to your benefit because you didn't hear half of what I said. So what I got from it, it was interesting because we had almost like an example of that. So our ideas about resilience was the first conflict, and it was a healthy conflict because we were able to share different perspectives. But what I took away from that was, and I'm going to do my best to kind of hit the high points of everybody's perspective, is that certainly the perspective of the individual, what the individual wants out of that dynamic, is paramount, because if they don't find a receptivity in that dynamic, certain people will either double down, get louder and more aggressive and assertive, and certain people will just bow out. So that was, I think, the most simple way that I could say what we were talking about. I was with very articulate women in the group. So this is my simple form of saying what I think they were saying. Did I get that right, ladies?
Yes.
Okay.
And there was just one thing we wanted to add to that, was that we wanted to add how important conflict was and how moving through it actually made teams stronger, and that we needed rules of engagement around it so that we could make sure we moved through conflict to resolution, so that everyone on the team became a unit, like a collective, rather than individuals just fighting for their spot to be heard.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. And from the fourth group?
Yeah, hi. So we came up with a long list of sources of conflict that come up most. We said lack of shared values, not taking into account personal situations of team members, especially during the pandemic, not keeping commitments, not delivering on promises, a lack of trust, lack of clear rules, lack of clear expectations, conflicting messages, so inconsistency, and talking about, especially when we were talking about the purpose and the values that we were talking about as part of the resilience, not really being consistent of that, maybe not implementing that on a daily basis, and maybe something in theory, but not really seeing that incorporated daily, lack of comfort to talk openly. And I guess to the point of the other groups and talking about the perspective on conflict, that really tied into how we talked about the connection between resilience and conflict, and examples were given on how during the pandemic, there were some teams that ended up thriving if they were able to approach the pandemic and approach this with a sense of resiliency and a much more calm, clear-headed approach, as opposed to teams that it was more, more reactionary and ended up becoming more of a self-fulfilling prophecy of what, the feared outcome did come true because of how they approached it. So.
Thank you very much, Lara. Thank you. Now, let's do a quick poll. Jimmy, if you could launch the poll. And the question for the poll is, what are the biggest challenges for teams in 2022? Navigating hybrid workplaces, ongoing uncertainty, burnout, other. If you choose other, please type in the chat, what is this other that you have chosen? And okay. We have
some burnout, ongoing uncertainty, a little bit of navigating hybrid workspace.
Okay.
Kim says hiring and retaining good people, team turnover.
Yes. Okay, I think we can close the poll. And here are the results. So ongoing uncertainty goes on the top with burnout really in a high percentage. And we see that navigating the hybrid workplace is lower. But think about how that connects also not only with the resilience, but how it is inevitable that when there is increased uncertainty and when people are burnout, the less likely it is that they will be able to be in a space where they can manage conflict more effectively and have these conversations and debate ideas. Now, I will start sharing my screen again. Okay, so here we are. The fact is, as you also saw in your work groups, that these two go hand in hand. Improving resilience can improve conflict resolution, and improving conflict resolution those skills can enhance the resilience. And we have some key factors to take under consideration, key skills that can positively help us positively manage conflict. And these also factors are common to high resilience as well. So we see, as you already mentioned, the conflict management as an opportunity to learn from a difficult or challenging situation. It helps individuals and teams to better understand the differences, how each team member has contributed and how to better manage these cases in the future. Also, there is another kind of management of the expectations of the resolution to understand the reality of the situation and what is in our own control. That helps in having the confidence to take steps towards the resolution. Another factor has to do with the communication and the ability to really listen. These are key skills, as also acknowledging, understanding, and managing emotions, which are also extremely important. This links to the learning how to choose our response, or the team members' response, rather than get hooked emotionally and react. And accepting the inevitability of conflict and welcome the challenge to positively manage this as an important management and leadership skill, leading to healthy relationships and cultures. It is inevitable to have conflict. Actually, it wouldn't be healthy not to have conflict. And those who are more resilient are likely to try to manage conflict in a constructive way and learn from it rather than avoid it. Conversely, the less resilient are more likely to avoid conflict rather than manage it. And we all know that this is not a good strategy in the vast majority of the cases. Now, this is from a poll we did on LinkedIn with the ICF UK chapter a couple of months ago. And the question was, what are the most important characteristics of resilient teams? And you saw that they had to make a choice and also type other in the comments. Nothing else came as other, and the vast majority opted for something that you had already mentioned: the trust and the safety. And we have the importance of the psychological safety. In the era of the pandemic, and depending on which part of the world, not only the pandemic, it is also the physical safety. We used to talk only about the psychological safety, but we do need to keep in mind the physical safety as well. And how do we add that to the agreements that we make with the team? This is from the team coaching competency model, and it makes sense that we have added all these additional sub-competencies to how we cultivate trust and safety in team when we are coaching a team. The team coach may need to encourage team members to speak freely in team meetings, to share their individual feelings, their perceptions, their concerns, their beliefs, their hopes, even the suggestions. This will not happen. They will not do that in an environment where they do not feel safe to do so. And in order for its team member, to participate freely and meaningfully, the team coach must build a safe space within which each team member feels free to disagree with teammates or raise sensitive topics. Now, my challenge is that we only have 8 minutes left, and I promise you a lot of material and tools. Let's quickly see some that are more critical. And I think this is also important. Talking about psychological safety, that refers to our perceptions of the consequences of taking an interpersonal risk, or a belief that the team is safe for risk-taking in the face of being seen as ignorant, incompetent, negative, or disruptive. In a team with high psychological safety, teammates feel safe to take risks around their team members. They feel confident that no one on the team will embarrass or punish anyone else for admitting a mistake, asking a question, offering a new idea, or debate on disagreements. This is a model by Timothy Clark. He explains the 4 stages of psychological safety. And here we can see that we are already starting from, the first one, the inclusion. Do I feel included here? Am I growing? It's not only that I feel included in a team, but am I also growing? The next step is, am I making a difference? So yes, I can feel included. I can feel that I'm growing, but do I feel that I'm making a difference? And the last one is, am I challenging the status quo? That's the challenge of safety. And the ideal, the highest level of psychological safety is the last one, that allows us to overcome the pressure to conform and give us a license to innovate, be creative, and disagree, right? When we think something needs to change, or maybe when it's time to say no. There are some myths worth mentioning about what is psychological safety. It's not about being nice. It's about being respectful. It's about confidence that vulnerability, openness, and kindness are welcome. No one likes not knowing, not being right, asking for help, reporting mistakes, or failing. Yet, all these are all the behaviors that we see in organizations and in teams that innovate. And you can find more in Professor Edmondson's work on psychological safety. Psychological safety is not about protecting people. For example, we avoid the conflict management because we want to protect people, but it is about the quality of the conversations. It's not the opposite of risk-taking, but an enabler of experimentation. And in fact, we want to encourage productive intellectual conflict while we are reducing social conflict. It removes the fear of retaliation. The best teams and the best partnerships, for that matter, are not conflict-free. They don't even have any more or less conflict. They have conflict differently, with a great deal of candor and respect. And we want to remember that it's a means, not an end, the psychological safety. It is the mechanism that enables innovation, excellence, and learning, and therefore high resilience. Now, let's talk about contracting, because contracting, as coaches, we understand what contracting means. That's the first thing that we do, either with an individual, with a group, or a team. The way we show up determines the way people feel. The way the people feel determines the extent to which they can engage. We cannot engage if we feel unsafe. That's basic neuroscience. We have our amygdala triggered there. And that impacts pretty much everything about the outcome of that relationship. How do we show up as coaches, team coaches in our case, in contracting? How do we guide the conversations when we are addressing conflict within the confines of a well-established contract? So, in the few minutes left, we are going to share a model of contracting that I absolutely love. It's from Eric Berne from Transactional Analysis. In our case today, we didn't have to do the first one. It was already covered, the administrative contract. We had to just, review the professional contract, what's the aim about it, but we did have to do the psychological contract. This deals with the possible underlying issues, the attitudes, expectations. You remember what excites you. Also concerns, hopes, desires, maybe fears, insecurities, everything, and agree on the ground rules. How do we want to work together? How do we want to be in this space today? If this aspect is not discussed openly, it can jeopardize the task, and this is something that we are always co-creating. Now, talking about contracting, we have people that are already living What about the rest of you guys? Oh, how many are still on the line with us? Okay.
It's about 15, 16.
Okay. Let's see if we can negotiate our contract for the duration. And if you can stay 10 more minutes, please raise your hand.
You'll have to use the reaction button or turn your camera on. There we go.
Yes. Okay, so Jimmy, is your call. Shall I wrap up this or shall I take 10 more minutes?
No, I think we've got a few people on here. Let's do 10 more minutes. I'm okay. I've got space. If you're good to go, I'm good for it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's stay a little bit and talk more about the contracting and the psychological part of it. What did you notice in today's session about contracting? I already gave the hints, but one thing, and we were discussing about it with Jimmy during the breakout rooms, was how, in our case, the facilitator, not the team coach, was first showing up with vulnerability. So we set the tone, right? We are first modeling what we are saying. Hey, we can make mistakes. I'm doing mistakes. And setting personal stories is another way for us to be like there, naked, emotionally naked, vulnerable with a team. So if you want to create a safe space with your team, you start by modeling that. If you want everybody to feel safe and be open and vulnerable, be willing to do that first. And this is just one of the models of contracting, but you can use any model of contracting. Now, the rules that we agree there, these are also the rules and norms that we have in the team competency model that are going also to help us manage disagreements, manage conflict. So these are just one of the rules. We said also about alignment a lot. This is this is relatively new tool, Neil's wheel, and I'm beginning to become more and more in love with this wheel because I can use it with individuals, I can use it with groups, I can use it with teams, and with teams it helps create alignment because they have to talk about these and they have to agree of what is there in the team's wheel. So it's not about the satisfaction like the wheel of life, but what is included. If they want to talk about the satisfaction, feel free to do that. And see here, we have elements that help about the resilience. So it's another way to bring these to the conversations and increase the awareness, like purpose and values. Now, another tool, very popular, is the drama triangle. And those of you who have studied transactional analysis or have met with drama triangle elsewhere, you are very familiar with that. Now, I have on purpose put so much context on this one so that you have the cues for that. One thing that I would like to pay attention, for us as coaches to pay attention to, is that we as team coaches don't become the rescuer or hero. Right? We don't want to be engaged in their dynamics or sucking in them, because in the competencies that it says that we are aware of the team dynamics and we remain objective on the team dynamics. So if we are noticing that there is something that is challenging the team's resilience and a source of conflict, we want to observe what's going on there. What are the roles and how we can shift from the drama triangle to the winner's triangle that was created by Asher Choi. And this is based on the good intention that everybody has, because even in the drama triangle, everyone here, every role, there is 10% of good intention behind every role. So we want to tap into that and reinforce that and see how we can change that. Sometimes, and I have done that actually, I don't need actually to think intentionally about that. Sometimes just by bringing the drama triangle and just be curious, I'm wondering what's going on here, or totally objective and neutral, I bring more curiosity and say, if I'm taking any of these roles, and am I staying only in one of the roles? No, you have to know that whenever there is a drama triangle, the rescuer is never only the rescuer. The victim is never only the victim. The persecutor is never only the villain here. I mentioned also at the beginning about strengths and how I have used it. This is from the art wall of StrengthsFinder from Gallup. And one way that I use that is that every member of the team, they had to draw the visual representation of their strengths. Now, I was working with a leadership team, and there was some, competition, inside competition there, some interesting dynamics, and there was some underlying conflict. And I wanted to raise more awareness of their diversity, and I used that as a different indirect way, to manage the other roots of conflict. So what they did, we discovered that in their StrengthsFinder assessment, we had a lot of achievers. So the request was for those of them who had the achievers to make the visual representation, to draw their strength. How do they see themselves? How do they see this strength in them? And here you see what these 5 leaders from this organization made. Everyone made something different. So the invitation then was for everyone to just see them and just observe and see what is it that you notice and what is it that you learn from that, right? And start to appreciate the differences. Even if you can have a same like label, like achiever, it shows up differently. Another tool is the square wheels. This can be in phrases like, that's how we have always done things here, right? And the square wheels are, that's how things have always been here. Or someone comes and they say, oh, I have an idea, right? Their idea is a round wheel, but the others are too busy trying to move these forward because they say, we don't have time for that now. And I bet that as coaches, you must have heard that also often from people who say, well, maybe let's try that. And they say, we don't have time now for coaching. We don't have time now for that idea. We don't have time to take some time to reflect, right? We don't have time for that. So I have put that on the table with another leadership group, and I asked them, okay, this is what you are focused on. This is what are your priorities. And what do you think are your square wheels? And I invite them to reflect of, do you have any square wheels? What are your square wheels right now? And what's the cost of keeping them? What alternatives do you have? What are your possible round wheels here? Now, tips I want to leave you with. Create a strong sense of how you show up. We demonstrate emotional intelligence in action, and give the vocabulary. If our team, if the team members do not have, help them find the vocabulary. Get them in tune to the way they speak, they behave, they make people feel. Establish psychological safety as a must-have for team success. Again, give them the vocabulary, what it means. We made an example at the beginning of our session. Agree the rules of engagement, our ground rules that reflect not only emotional intelligence and psychological safety, but also our points of reference, even for decisions or for checking in with us or for managing disagreements. Model everything actually in your interactions with team members. At the beginning of the work with a team and at its meeting, check with them. I will give you an example. This is from, okay, I have from Jean-Marie Giovanna. And 6 questions to create psychological safety with team members. Actually, we use that in the team of the team and group coaching community of practice, the co-leaders and the ambassador, at the beginning of every meeting we had. And we said, okay, we will randomly choose one question today, and we will start by each one of us answering this question, and we will listen and understand each other. The reason why we did that was to increase our connection and our understanding of each other. We were really listening and trying to understand each other. Because we have to work also with deadlines. And this you will find also in your materials. So you see that psychological, this is actually from the project Aristotle that Google did, and these were the results. They wanted to discover the secret of effective teams. I dare to say that these can also be the secrets of resilient teams as well. You see, they understand the impact, that their work matters, what's the purpose, right? The meaning they have, clarity of structures, the roles, the goals, the plans, the dependability, how they can lean on each other, and the psychological safety. We can always add to that. Okay, I'm now challenging a lot my boundaries of the time. One last screen, but you will receive that, one last slide to share with you, but you will see that. Feel free to connect with me. We said with Jimmy, I'm in most of social media, so you can feel free to connect with me, find me, any question you have, I will be happy to answer, provide any additional information. So thank you all very, very much. And if you were going to take just one word from today's, masterclass, what that word is, what's the word that stays with you? And please feel free to put that in the chat box.
Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, your time with us today. We're very, very happy and very grateful to have you here. Misha, I see you got on here. I'm so glad you made it. Did you want to say hello or thank you or anything?
Me too. All of the above. Hello, wonderful people. And thank you for joining us. And Katarina, I am so grateful for your presence and just informing us and elevating us into this greater awareness of what you presented to us. Even the snippet that I caught was so valuable. So thank you for saying yes.